Okay, I think we should start today's our meeting, and I'm very happy to welcome you to today's webinar. We will dive into the fascinating world of the Baltic Sea with our special guests, and we are joined by Tymon Zieliński. Professor Tymon Zieliński is the head of the climate and ocean research and education team at the Institute of Oceanology of the Polish Academy of Sciences in Sopot, where he holds the position of professor. And he also he was chair of the EU for Ocean Coalition's Climate and Ocean Working Group, and he has been a member of the Climate Council of the UN Global Compact Network, Poland. And Aleksandra Koroza is a researcher. Sorry, I must check something. Sorry, Alex, for that.
Before you introduce Alex, I will just say that
yes,
I have more than just one sweatshirt. It's just a coincidence that I'm wearing the same one in the picture.
Of course.
Okay. So, sorry, Alex, I must check because somebody write to me.
Yes.
Can coming to days for this
Okay.
our webinars. So Aleksandra Koroza is a researcher at the laboratory for climate and ocean education and research team at the Institute of Oceanology of the Polish Academy of Sciences. And she focused on marine ecosystem service and various studies concluded with the laboratory that combine social science with ocean and marine research. And my name is Izabela Kotyńska-Zielińska. I'm a founder of Today We Have and an ocean literacy educator and communicator. And I'm also a member of mentor in the Shore project with the Polish Country Hub, which is represented by WSB University in Dąbrowa Górnicza in Poland. And webinar is founded under Shore project. It's a Mission Ocean and Waters project funded by the EU's Horizon Europe Research and Innovation Program. Welcome everybody, and I'm very happy you can join today. And maybe to start the quite as such the fascinating and the unique aspects of the Baltic Sea. If you, Alex, have if you have any questions before, please feel free to raise hand or share them in the chat. Our guests will be more than happy to address them. So, Aleksandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Cool. So some few words of introduction about the Baltic Sea that we will be talking more today. Isaac, could you switch slides? Okay. So first, of course, where is the Baltic Sea located? As you can see on the left side, it's surrounded by many countries, I'm sure some of which you represent today. And on the right side, we have like a general overview in a red color to just give us an imagination of how large this area surrounding the Baltic Sea is. So the land that is around the Baltic Sea is really large. And in fact, if I would be comparing it to something more imaginative for everyone, it could be compared to the size of England and Wales combined, and still would be greater in size, about 9 times. So this is how large the area around of the land around the Baltic Sea is, which has its consequences for the sea, of course. Isaac, could you switch the slides? So another characteristic thing about the Baltic Sea is that it has a lot of rivers entering it. So there are about 250 rivers entering the sea. One of the greatest in size is Vistula River. Obviously, this means that the water that is entering the sea through the rivers is also impacting the health and the condition of the Baltic Sea, and it's giving fresh water accumulation for the sea. As you can see on all of those maps, the Baltic Sea is also connected to the North Sea through Danish Straits, but this passage is very narrow, and the conditions must be very specific for the water to exchange between the Baltic Sea and the North Sea, which is happening less and less due to those changing conditions in climate change and in general that is not allowing for the water to exchange in great amounts. Although there is still ongoing some small exchange between the seas all the time, it's not a major exchange. Okay. So Baltic Sea is also a specific sea because of its salinity. It's neither a salty sea, neither like a freshwater basin. It's semi-sweet, semi-salty. So its salinity, it's considered on average to be about 7 grams of salt per 1 liter of water. If we would be comparing it to something that could be more imaginative, it would be about 1 spoon of like small spoon of salt put into the 1 liter of water and resolved. Okay. Its temperature is also rather cold, even though it's changing obviously in current times due to climate change. It's still a cold sea. So on average, the temperature is reaching about 4 degrees during winter season, and about 15 and more, as you could probably, some of you could observe this summer recently. It was about 20 something degrees, but it's not something typical. It used to be about 14 or even sometimes less during those summer seasons. On this graph below, there's like a comparison, but the general thought of it is that this temperature across all of the seas, like Black Sea, Baltic, Mediterranean, North Sea, is increasing during the years. So yes, this is just a comment and a picture for it. Okay, can we go further? Adding to this picture of the Baltic Sea and why it's so unique, I have to say also about its depth, because it's rather a shallow sea. Its average depth is about 55 meters. In comparison, North Sea average depth is about 90 meters, and for the Mediterranean Sea, it would be about 1,400 meters. So this range is quite diverse across those seas, and you can tell that the Baltic Sea, it's rather a shallow basin. Okay. Because all of those conditions that I have mentioned before, Baltic Sea biodiversity is rather low in comparison to other seas, but it doesn't mean that we don't have any fauna, flora, and any organisms living in it. We still have a quite wide range of different organisms living in those conditions that adapted to those specific characteristics of the sea. It is observed that there are quite more species living more near to the Danish Straits, where the salinity is higher and temperature is more comparable to the other seas, so it's a bit higher. But it's mostly about the salinity conditions. Okay, in general, okay, yes, thank you. Yeah, we can go forward. Yeah. So this environment is unique, and we need to all think about how we what an impact we have on the sea in general, not only Baltic, but Baltic also. Because when we treat sea in a good way, we treat ourselves in a good way. Putting it in a simple words, it works like this. But when giving any better examples, it could be, for example, a condition of a cod fish in the Baltic Sea that used to be a really large fish, and it could be fished in a great amounts, like 50 years ago or so. And right now, we can't fish legally cod fish, and it's disappearing from the sea because of its pollution, because there are no good conditions for its reproduction, and so on. So if we, like, the cod cannot be really, the cod situation cannot be improved in a way that cod probably will never reproduce again in the sea, even if we improve the conditions. But there are other organisms living in our sea that we can still take care of, including ourselves. But the cod is a good example because it shows how community relies on the sea resources, because we like cod and it was part of our culture, and maybe people cannot really agree with this loss till this day. So yes, we can go on.
Okay. Before we start the next presentation, I have a question about Baltic Sea, of course, because it's a very unique sea, but also has many problems. And could you discuss these problems?
Okay. Would you like me to start, or Tymon?
I think you, Alex, should start because you
okay. Yeah, it will be a continuation.
Yes, it will be the great continuation.
Yes. So remember, like I mentioned, the cod sea. I will make of it like a story, because part of the issue with the codfish was that our waters are largely impacted by the huge input of nutrients through those rivers that I have shown you on the map. There are many of them, and they are entering to the sea a lot of amounts of nutrients. And those nutrients get to the water through different human activities. For example, factories work, traveling, our everyday traveling, and using cars, buses, not electric ones, but yes, buses. And all of those, our activities generate nutrients, and especially nitrogen and phosphorus are those that are impacting hugely what is happening in the Baltic Sea. And here comes into our eyes this term eutrophication, which seems like a monster, but it's not really. It's like a huge development of algae that is causing some blooms, like you can see on the top picture, like these green areas, and it's like there is too much of bacteria, cyanobacteria, that is developing in the water, and with time it's taking too much space and light, and nothing else can really develop in the water, and all of the organisms are hugely impacted and have a poor condition, health, and everything becomes to die because of limited oxygen and light. And then it drops to the bottom of the sea and uses the rest of the oxygen in extreme conditions. And then there are also some dead zones because of it in our sea. So currently it is being estimated that those dead zones in the Baltic Sea cover an area that could be compared to Ireland in surface size. So it is a great amount. But yes, we have also a great amount to take care of and to improve those areas that are called dead zones. Because if we improve our activity and limit our nitrogen, phosphorus, and our other nutrients input to the water, the condition is improving, as it was shown also in some of the scientific reports by the group called HELCOM that is taking care of the Baltic Sea and discussing issues like this. So yes, we only need to really follow the steps that this commission is trying to teach us, and yeah, and all will be good.
Thanks, Alex.
If I may join, yes. If you look at the picture of the Baltic Sea and remember the area around the Baltic Sea, plus if you add to that 52 meters average depth, that basically we're talking about a coastal sea. It's a very shallow, very populated sea with a lot of traffic. As you can see, it's one of the snapshots of the marine traffic at the moment of one day. Everyone can join this map, no problem. It's marinetraffic.com. So we have a huge impact of humans on the entire sea. So if you ask about what are the dangers for the Baltic, it's the humans basically, and on the local scale, but also on the global scale, because the humans who have impacted the climate system, the consequences of climate change are also very, very visible in our sea. And Izabela, if you go back to the eutrophication slide, speaking of a coastal sea, that means that a lot of activities are related to the coast. This is one of the examples of how much is going on in the coastal area. We have factories, we have agriculture, we have big human settlements, big cities, ports, shipyards. A lot of activities are going on in these areas. If you multiply it by different big ports in the Baltic, starting from Gothenburg, Copenhagen, Rostock, Warnemünde, we're coming to Poland with Szczecin port. Then we have Gdynia, Gdańsk, who are number 1 and number 3 container ports in the Baltic, and so on in different countries. Then you can see how very much impacted by people our small and shallow sea is. And on top of that, we have very little contact. It's very similar situation to the Black Sea. However, the Black Sea is very deep. but also has very little contact through the Bosphor, the Strait towards the Mediterranean. We have very little contact with the North Sea through the Danish Straits. So like the Black Sea, the Baltic is turning into a big lake, and this is something that we have to accept, unfortunately, and we have to live with. However, what we have to take care of is that we do not interfere with this big lake too much, because it's gonna be a ruined lake. So on one hand, we have to accept the fact that the Baltic is changing and is moving into maybe not fresh water, but brackish water, very, very little salty water. And we have to accept the fact, because the climate change is doing its job. Plus, the big rivers, as Alex said, are contributing a lot of fresh water every second to the Baltic. But we have to be very, very careful how we use the whole area around the Baltic and the Baltic itself. So Alex gave a good example of how the Helsinki Commission is monitoring the state of the Baltic. And we know from the annual reports that the state of the Baltic is not going worse anymore. There are some elements that show that it's getting better, but it's going to be a lot of time that we need, and no human intervention into the natural environment, so that the Baltic will become a healthy, big, healthy lake in the northern European part of the planet. So that's my comment. So in general, it's up to us if we destroy it or if we make it livable and be wonderful.
Okay, thanks, Tymon.
Okay, if you can get back to this one. Yes, that's also a very important issue that we have in the Baltic, but it's also a relevant issue in many coastal areas where there is a lot of ship traffic. There are two issues connected with ship traffic. You saw the map with many ships in the Baltic. So one thing is like depicted in this slide. It's the noise, and the noise is really not very good, especially for marine mammals. Probably Alex can contribute to this discussion more, because her master's was on marine mammals, and she knows it better. But I will add from my field of interest another piece of information. If you look at these little ships here, and if you think about looking at the ships, you notice that one of the most important parts of each ship is a huge chimney, huge exhaust pipe, and these ships produce a lot of pollution, atmospheric pollution, into in the areas, especially near ports. And this is also a very visible and concrete problem for many areas in the Baltic, because ship exhausts, they produce soot, so very little particles of coal that are injected into the atmosphere, and these in the marine environment are fantastic for creating water droplets. And water droplets, when connected, they create clouds. So the Baltic is a very cloudy sea, partly because of the problem with too much marine traffic that is producing the material for creating clouds. And the noise, the floor is yours,
Okay.
Alex.
So yes, marine traffic generates a lot of different issues, one of which is noise. And obviously it's not the only source of the noise in the sea, but it's one of the major ones in the Baltic Sea because of huge marine traffic, which means it's about 2,000 different ships every moment, like all the time. There are at least 2,000 different ships on this sea. No matter which second you think about it, there are always there. And you can check it through the website that Tymon has shown on the previous slide, so marine traffic, because it's monitoring marine traffic all the time, and you can see it in the, yes, thank you. So going back to how this noise can have an impact on fauna, including marine mammals, and others like fish are hugely impacted because they are relying on the sound as their method of communicating between each other, and also they are relying on the sound when hunting. So the sound of ships traveling through the sea is sometimes really covering the sounds that are produced by different species. So this is a huge risk because sometimes, for example, in marine mammals, they cannot efficiently communicate and avoid, for example, those ships or other risks. And apart from it, the great risk about the marine traffic noise is that it is constant, because the sea is hugely polluted with the noise from marine traffic on a daily basis. So it's not like those animals have anywhere to escape from it. Like fish and most of marine mammals cannot really leave the sea because they find some area really noisy. If we like observe ourselves when it's sometimes very noisy, we try to escape places, and mostly we can do it. They can't. So yes, this is something to keep in mind. And obviously, there has been some strategies in other countries that are implementing some law changes to monitor this marine traffic in a better way. And for example, they close some parts of the sea that are very important for marine mammals, or in general for fish and some species that are hugely impacted by this noise. And then this traffic is lower in those parts, and animals can escape at least in some extent. So yes.
Okay, super, Alex. Thank you very much for this. So, what is the future of the Baltic? Tymon, what do you think?
Beautiful, wonderful, positive. We're around Christmas, so we have to be positive. What is the future of the Baltic? If we could go back to one slide and add one more point for discussion. Yes, the Baltic related threats. So we are impacting the Baltic really badly, and it's been for centuries now. Luckily, as we both said, with the HELCOM interventions and reports, we know that the humans are coming to their senses, and we are impacting the Baltic far less than we used to, like 40 years ago. But the Baltic and the climate system is paying us back in certain areas, and one of the issues that we have to be very much aware of, especially in the coastal areas, is the consequence of the climate change. That means sea level rise and more extreme, more often, more frequent extreme weather conditions. And on the left, you see a photo of a storm surge from 2 or 3 years ago in the area where we live. And these storms happen more and more frequently. When I was a kid, when a storm of this size was in the Baltic, in the bay where we live, all kids ran to the sea to see it. It was a big event. Now, basically, we have 3, 5, 6 such big events during the stormy season. That means fall and winter. So the frequency is much bigger now. And the second thing is the sea level rise, which is a very important problem. So the warming sea increases its volume. The water, when it's heated, there is more water in the given volume. And of course, we don't. The Baltic is itself, the body is not extending, and there is more water. So this water has to go somewhere, and it will go like into the into the land, as you can see in the projection for the area where we live in 30 in 25 years from now. So this increasing sea level and more frequent storms will cause conditions for floods. And the area that you can see that is in red, it's a very low level area. It's slightly below the sea level. And there's a big river going towards the Baltic. So with the big storm from the Baltic that will be pushing water to land, also pushing water to the body of the Vistula River, will probably, we know it will cause problems and flooding into a really big area. The question is how often such conditions will happen. Unfortunately, the predictions are that they will be fairly often enough that we have to start adapting to the change, because otherwise we will have a big problem for more than 1 million people living in the area. And either we'll have to relocate them, but if we relocate people, we also have to find jobs for them. We have to find opportunities for them to go to schools for their children. We have to provide them medical services, all other services. So it's a major change. And if you relocate people in the number of, let's say, 500,000 even, then it of course impacts not only this local area, but it impacts the whole region, because it's a huge number of people and services and jobs and everything else that is connected with something like that. So the future of the Baltic, to start the discussion about the future of the Baltic, we can see in many different levels. One of the levels, let's stick to the negative one, is that the Baltic will become more unpredictable because of the climate change consequences, and we have to get ready for that. You can see in the picture on the left, there is a boulevard and the wall that is specially prepared for the storms. But as you can see, these waves are way above it, and so already the boulevard was built like 45 years ago, and the predictions were much different then. So the walls seems like that they should already be either bigger, or we have to build some structures in the sea outside of the boulevard that will break the waves, and the waves will not be so high when they reach the wall. So these engineering aspects are very important, and humans have to start working on it. And it's not only a problem in our Gulf of Gdansk and the Polish area, it's a problem for the entire Baltic. It's a problem for entire planet. So speaking about the future of the Baltic, one aspect is that the Baltic may become more dangerous for us. But also we have positive aspects that the Baltic is changing into the lake, as we said. Maybe it's not positive; it's a fact. But the positive thing is that the trends show that the Baltic is getting healthier than it used to be. So I think the future is we have to accept the fact that it's changing. We have to accept the fact that we messed up as humans, and we have to clean it. We have to accept the fact that certain things will be gone forever, most likely codfish, very likely marine mammals may have problem living in the Baltic unless they adapt through the changes, because they rather but this is a question to Alex, what she thinks. Like, can we have seals in the Baltic Lake?
I think,
Alex?
yeah, like, yes, maybe, yes, it is possible. Especially right now in those brackish waters and so on. But even I think it is possible that even if it is a lake, then we will have some endemic species that will break through the conditions that are, because I think it won't be like a typical lake. It will
Of
be
course.
something, because it's already kind of a unique sea. So yeah, but it's a question of time, I guess, and what will happen next and what the people will do about all of those challenges that we talk through today. Um, yeah, so like it's about taking advantage of what is already happening and turning it into something positive as much as we can, and preventing some of the changes that are drastic for ourselves even from developing further, like those floods, for example. So yes, a mix of engineering and a mix of some maybe environmental laws and things that could maybe slower those changes for us in order for us to have more time to develop some changes that can save us, because it's really all about it. Like, I think that environment will manage, and like in all of the scenarios, it won't be the same, obviously, because it's changing, but it's about how we will need to face all of those changes and how we will need to change our lives and our culture also, because some of the aspects of environment are like really hugely impacting our daily lives. Like, okay, I'm always talking about the Scotfish, but it's a really good example. It has really because it has some really also deep connections in our cuisine, in our marine culture, at least in Poland, and as I know in some other parts of the Baltic Sea, it is also very important. So it is changing, but it is not the end of the world, because there are some new species coming, because the environment is changing and some species are extending their abundance. So yeah, it's about adapting, but it's also about communication, because we need to adapt somehow. So we need to communicate.
Yeah, once you touched upon the communication, I do believe that we have to communicate with people that the Baltic is changing and we have to accept the fact. We have to facilitate the best condition for the healthy change rather than fight for the right to have the Baltic from 50 years ago, because it's not going to happen. And this is going to actually hurt the Baltic. So we have to accept the fact that it's changing. We have to support a sustainable change of the Baltic. And then I think the future of the Baltic is not so bad. I would say it's a fantastic place for recreation and water sports, especially the area of the Gulf of Gdansk, but not only, of course, but in our area, we have a lot of such activities. I would really be happy if we reduce the marine traffic in the Baltic, because I don't think it's justified that we have such traffic. We have beautiful beaches, Andrea, and everything depends on your preference. I would say for me, the preferred beaches are the ones on the open sea, not in the bay, because they're much wider, and then you can really find places where there are basically no people. Except that the water usually on the open seas is much colder than in the bay. So it's something for something. Yeah. I don't know, Alex, Isabella, what are your favorite beaches?
Hmm. I don't know really. I like all of the beaches like, in some extent, but obviously for me, it's better when it's less people.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I like the beaches that are like outside of Tree City more than those in the bay.
Mm.
So,
And
Isabella?
my favorite is Gdynia Orłowo.
Oh, okay, yeah, this
Okay.
one, yeah. It's
Where is
also
Okay.
a good one.
there is a cliff, and we have workshops with students and teachers, and I really like this area, and for me is the best.
But
Close
I
to,
have one. I'm sorry. Yeah.
very
I have
close.
one.
We can walking on the beach and see a amazing view.
Yeah, that's true. I have one interesting issue to tell you about the Baltic Sea, believe it or not, but it's also good for surfing. Uh, However, it's a special type of surfing because you surf at this time of the year, because the big waves come in winter, fall and winter. So whenever it's dark, cold, and windy, these are good conditions for surfers. And there is a small number of people who actually do it on more or less regular basis and are absolutely fascinated with that. They get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. It's even darker than now, and they go to the open sea or to the outside of the bay, and they surf. And apparently, it's really big fun when it's 1 degree or 2 degrees.
Um, do we have maybe some questions to Alex and Timon?
Or comments?
Comment questions, yeah, of course.
Or would you like to compare our information with your sea, maybe? The Black Sea has many similar problems to the Baltic, except that it's a much deeper sea. So the structure of the water column is completely different. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have like 100% of the dead zones at the bottom, right? We have like 20-25%, but you guys are, I think, completely dead, and at the bottom there is huge stratification, right? So that's also interesting. And you have the potential problem with the Danube River and other rivers that come into the Black Sea as well. So there are many similarities, except that you are a big hole and we are a flat splash of water. Yeah.
That's one. Mhm.
And there's some information in the chat, but I cannot see. Okay. Ah, you're mostly welcome, Andrea, back in Poland, back in Sopot.
And bread and pasta.
Definitely. Uh,
Okay, so maybe Tymon and Alex, what would you suggest to our listeners in order to encourage them to have a very sustainable relationship with the Baltic or their sea?
Alex, you first or me?
Yeah, I mean, what like for me, maybe the first thing is to be open-minded and listen to the information from different sources, compare and have your own thoughts on those subjects, but also take into account that there are also a lot of scientists that are working on some of the subjects, and it's really valid to listen and consider their opinion and then maybe act on it if you can somehow in your life. So, for example, through voting for different governments that are thinking about our environment, when you will be able to do it, because I don't know your age right now. The second thing that perhaps some of you already have started would be to participate in conferences, for example, also in meetings and in workshops like this one, and share your knowledge with others, because it's not always about the age. You can share your knowledge with parents, grandparents, and your other friends. So it's always valid thing. I don't know, Timon.
Yeah, all these things that you said, plus we were talking about blue planet, and you're taught in schools that 70% of the planet's surface is ocean, which means it's a lot. But if you really think about it, and if you really think about the depth of the ocean and all the seas, you will see that we have very little water, in fact, on our planet. It looks like a blue planet, but it's a very thin layer of water that we have to use. And we're using it very, very extensively. So my suggestion would be think about it that we have a lot of water, but as a matter of fact, it's not that much. And if you think about it, then you start thinking about to value the water, because you go to the bathroom in your school, you run water. Water is always available, but we have to value water so that in 10, 15, 20 years from now, 30, you will, as adults, you will have the same conditions with water, because if we mess up now, then the water resources, which are not endless, will be getting smaller, and the use of the ocean will have to be changed. And you can think about desalination of the ocean water to provide fresh water for yourselves, but it's hugely expensive. It's hugely difficult. It creates it needs a lot of energy. So this is really not a solution for us at the moment, because then you are doing another big impact on the ocean and on the climate. So think in terms of like everything is connected. Your every daily activity uses water, and we have to minimize our use of water. You don't have to change your life completely, but you have to start reducing your certain needs, daily needs. You do not run water when you brush your teeth, when you take a big bath. Maybe don't take it every 5 hours. Do it like twice a week, and then take a shower on other occasions. Coffee definitely stays, and without water, coffee is not possible. But maybe instead of having 5 cups of coffee a day, maybe we can go for 3 cups of coffee, and that's already a reduction of water consumption.
Plus, it's a benefit for your health. Perhaps.
That's not that obvious.
Unless it's espresso without milk and sugar. Sorry, Timon.
Maximum
Then
two
you can
coffees.
drink it.
Coffee has very, very good press recently among the medical announcements.
But black coffee, right?
Black coffee.
Black
Yeah.
coffee, yeah. So build a very positive relationship with the sea. Think about it when you use it. Think about it. It is fantastic, and it's really worth keeping it fantastic. It has many problems. Every sea has many problems. The ocean itself has many problems, but it's still fantastic. And it's up to us how we change make the positive change for the ocean and clean it and make it even better, but do not really accept certain types of messages that everything is dead, everything is useless, it's just time to die because it's not true. Everything is fantastic with many problems, but it's up to us. We have fantastic brains as humans. It's up to us to make the change into a positive result. So that would be my message. And your everyday decisions help to make the change for better.
Super. Thank you, Alex and Timon. Maybe more questions to Timon and Alex? Comments? Okay, so if not, so many thanks to everyone who join us from Spain, Croatia, Romania, Germany, and Poland. It's great to see such an international audience gathering to explore the fascinating topic of the Baltic Sea. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And stay with us. We are always happy to work with you guys.
Tymon, you are not Grinch anymore because you sent Santa Claus.
I know. That was the purpose of changing my Grinchy image. Bye, guys.
See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you for being with us.